Hi everyone, welcome to DevOps Info channel. Today in this video, we are going to take a look at the Microsoft Purview Adaptive Protection, setting it up the right way in your organization. So we will walk through the best practices for effective adaptive protection. So before we go ahead, let's talk a little bit of understanding the adaptive protection and the main purpose of it. The adaptive protection provides smarter risk-based security controls to enhance the organization defense. It integrates with already existing Microsoft security tools like Microsoft Defender, receive the signals, Intune to check the compliance status, and also conditional access to take proactive measures and to build the cohesive security infrastructure. So we will walk through these implementation steps. This will cover the main purpose of the adaptive protection, its benefits, and the key steps involved in the implementation, like whether you're security architect or an IT administrator. This guide will definitely help you align the adaptive protection with your existing infrastructure and security policies that you already have in your Microsoft Purview. So, little bit of core concepts and integration. When we talk about the adaptive protection, it customizes the data loss prevention policies based on real-time user behavior and the risk levels. It integrates seamlessly with already existing Microsoft tooling like Microsoft Defender, Intune, Entra and Conditional Access. And this gives a unified protection because it integrates closely with all these Microsoft services. So as a result of this integration, you bring also a better proactive control in your IT environment, and also it builds a better user-friendly security. Like it builds proper security controls, and they're applied only when necessary. That's based on like the user behavior and the risk levels, and also the signals that's receiving from already existing Microsoft ecosystem. So as a result of that, you have a proper proactive threat response, the behavior analytics, and the risk indicators that definitely enable the proactive detection of insider threats and the data exfiltration. Yeah, so by leveraging this behavior analytics, risk indicators, the adaptive protection enables the organizations to respond proactively to insider threats and the data exfiltration risks that's happening. I'm going to walk you through the little bit of implementation prerequisites. We have talked already a lot about that in one of the previous video, where we had a separate video on how to get started with the Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management. That's definitely a must watch video if you have not set up the Microsoft Insider Risk Management in your organization. Because one of the prerequisites before turning on the adaptive protection is like you need to have the Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management turn on. The adaptive protection will not work if you don't have the Insider Risk Management properly configured. Yeah, and also the DLP policies properly configured. So you need to have the DLP policies in place, the right insider risk management configured, and only then you have to come to the insider risk management. So the system requirements and prerequisites lies more or less the same. What it is applicable for the DLP and the insider risk management, you need to have the Microsoft Purview insider risk management, and then the licensed enabled before setup the compliance and risk monitoring. Of course, the endpoint security deployment, if you want to have more visibility into your endpoint, like what kind of data exploitation is happening, then the defender for endpoint should be onboarded to bring comprehensive security across your ecosystem. And the endpoint management configuration, of course, you should have Intune onboarded to manage the endpoints, of course, with special attention to Mac devices for effective control and policy deployment. And the conditional access integration, yeah, this is partly okay. If you're not having it, then probably we can cover this with the Microsoft Purview adaptive protection conditional access policy, which is in the preview at the moment. We'll take a look at that. So these prerequisites form the foundation of effective risk-based policy enforcement and the telemetry collection, which are very critical for adaptive protection to function properly. And the next one is like configuring the risk indicators. This also I wanted to highlight, very important, because you need to have the correct insider risk management policies configured in your Microsoft Purview ecosystem. Because let's say if you have multiple insider risk management policies, and that multiple insider risk management policies doesn't have a proper scoping of users, a proper triggering threshold and indicators, then this adaptive protection is not going to work as expected. This is what I saw based on the demo that I was doing for the last 4 weeks. What I see is like you need to have like one insider risk management policy for adaptive protection, because adaptive protection allows to choose only one insider risk management policy, and that particular insider risk management policy should be properly configured with the right risk indicators and the triggering thresholds. And then these things will be implemented in the conditional access policy. We'll take a look at that in the demo in the next few minutes. So make sure the insider risk policy that you're configuring for the adaptive protection has the right risk indicators and the thresholds. Only then the adaptive protection response is going to work. Because if you're not choosing the right insider risk management policy for adaptive protection, then it is not going to be working. It will not generate any alerts, and also you will not see the proactive blocking method in this. So going further, I will take you to the demo to show you how it looks in reality. Okay, so before coming into the adaptive protection, like yeah, of course you need to go to the purview.microsoft.com, and then you need to come to the adaptive protection section. So this is the if this is the first time you're coming to adaptive protection, I highly recommend you start the insider risk management from the top to the bottom. Like you should have the proper insider risk management policies configured, and then you come to the adaptive protection at the last. So when you click on the adaptive protection, this is the dashboard you get. Yeah, this we look at a later stage. So the second one is like the first thing is you need to turn on the adaptive protection. Basically, you turn on this toggle switch. You need to wait for like 24 to 48 hours to do all the discovery based on your insider risk management policies that you have configured, and the risk levels and the indicators. Based on that, it would be able to detect what happened. So the next part is like the more important thing is the insider risk levels. You need to configure it properly, because these insider risk levels are the most important part of identifying like the elevated risk level, the moderated risk level, and the minor risk level. So here, like as I stated earlier in few minutes before, you need to choose the right insider risk policy, and that particular insider risk policy should have the proper triggering thresholds configured. So here, like I have just uh, chosen malicious data leaks policy, because in this case I have just created this malicious data leaks policy with the right triggering thresholds and the indicators. So after that, like you would be able to configure the elevated risk levels. But for these elevated risk levels, I recommend not to touch, because they're already configured very well. Because if you want to do, you can just go to edit, and then like you can also customize them. But I suggest like you just leave these three risk levels as is. You don't need to do anything. And the past activity detection, this is one of the good option, like where you have an options for the adaptive protection to discover for the last 30 days, like what are the activities, the insider risk activities that happen, and then it will be able to first show you on the dashboard of the severity. So after that, like you can select expire the risk level when a user alert is dismissed or case is closed, because this is very important in the case of false positives, where you see a lot of and sometimes you could see some false positive that's triggering at the initial stage whenever you bring a solution. So this option is very good in that scenario to turn this on. For example, if your team sees like any false positives and dismiss that alert, then it will be gone from the dashboard. And the next part, like I wanted to show you two important things, because this adaptive protection is also dependent on two important things, which is conditional access and the data loss prevention. So the moment when you turn on the toggle switch adaptive protection, it creates two data loss policy, like one for devices and other one for exchange. Obviously, at the moment, I recommend do not touch this, just leave it as is, because it works in this way. But if you want to make any options to change and target the location, obviously you can go and click edit and do that. But I recommend not touch this, because my first recommendation is to start adaptive protection with the default vanilla setup. Try to see where the data exfiltration is happening with the default set of policies. And then you would be able to eventually identify the residue, whatever you have, and improve them eventually. So, for example, if you look into the adaptive protection policy that we created, it has two policies: one for endpoints, that's the devices, and the other one is for Teams and Exchange DLP. So these two things you have in order to test this, and also it creates a conditional access policy. This is I will show you, for example, here. So block access to Office apps for users with insider risk preview. At the moment, this is in preview. So the moment when you turn this on, obviously it also create the associated conditional access policy. Um, so here it has an option to target all users. Of course, you can select the pilot users or the users whom you wanted to start with this adaptive protection policy, and eventually uh, expand it to a larger group of audience. And the target resources, like at the moment, see it says like only for the cloud apps. I have tested this only for the cloud apps, but like if you have tested it for any other apps, just feel free to let me know in the comment, and then I would be also explore that part. And of course, you have an option to exclude. These are all the conditional access policy options you have. And the conditions, this is very important. I wanted to tell you, in the conditions, like you have insider risk level, like you have three options: user risk, sign in risk, and insider risk. Excuse me. You have an option to choose all these three, and then you say block access, because this user risk and the sign in risk, these are coming from the enter id protection, because user risk level is like the user account is compromised. Sign in risk level is the sign in session is compromised. These two are more of the identity word of the enter id part. In this, like any kind of identity compromise that's coming from the intra ID protection logs, then you would be able to configure that level. But here in this example, I've just chosen only the insider risk, like that's into the Microsoft Purview ecosystem. Any users having a risk level of moderate or minor or elevated, you'll be able to take such actions. Like in this example, I've just chosen the activity risk of moderate and minor. Grant, you can just go with block access. You have also an option like require MFA, um, and require a password change. These kind of things you can do. But like my recommendation is like the condition, if you see the condition for the insider risk level as elevated, block access, and later you can go with your internal processes, and like if it is a like if it is a real case, then probably you can go with what are the actions that's required. And for moderate, minor you can exclude. For moderate, probably you can ask with a password change. But this process framework is completely to be decided by your organization policy, and how you're going to take the insider risk policy framework in your organization. So this is what especially in the conditional access part. So it works in combination with a lot of signals. You see, like it uses the Microsoft Defender for the endpoints, and it uses the conditional access for the proactive blocking mechanism, and also it uses the Microsoft Enter ID protection, and insider risk is from Microsoft Purview. So with all these things, you would be able to do a proactive methodology of blocking the user. I will show in reality the adaptive protection. I just simulated few of the test cases to show. So in this test case, I have just selected a minor risk because I did not generate much alerts. So in this minor risk, I just an example user called Kumar. He was doing some data exfiltration activity, just a couple of data exfiltration activity. Excuse me. So he was flagged as a minor risk. And if you see like the users assigned inside risk levels, you see those users here. And here, like you have an option to see what happened to the user, like user profile. This is Kumar. This is one of my test user activity. So he see like what kind of data exploitation the user did actually, like emails with attachment to free public domains, because This is one of the risk indicator I just selected in my example. That's the reason it's showing. Emails with attachments sent outside the organization, an X SharePoint file shared. So these are the triggering events based on my inside risk management policy, and it has detected. So here you can also see the adaptive protection summary. So here, like I have set my conditional access policy, even if it is a minor block access, because this is just a demo tenant. I would not suggest to block for a minor user risk level. Only for major you can block, but this is, since it's a demo, I wanted to show it the effectiveness of this policy. It has blocked. So here, as a result of that, the access to the user, even if they try to log in, they won't be able to successfully log in. Like you see, like even the policy, the insider risk management policy, that has triggered and blocked this activity. So this is what it happens in the adaptive protection. And one more minute, I will show you what happens. You also have an option to expire. So the moment when you expire, then obviously that alert will be gone from the dashboard. And in reality, when this user tries to log in, I will show that to you in a minute. Where is that? Okay, I think I have only the screenshot. I have not logged in, but if you see in reality, when the user tries to log in, then the user who gets this prompt, you cannot access this right now. Your sign in was successful but does not meet the criteria. So this happens when the user tries to log in after he's been flagged in the adaptive protection. And also you could see that in the conditional access logs. Like for example, this is the user Kumar, who tries to log in, who tries attempted login after he was flagged. So it says like in the conditional access, okay, in the basic info, you see access has been blocked by conditional access policies because it does not allow based on our insider risk management. So as a result of that, you see this, definitely this Microsoft Purview adaptive protection really helps in preventing the data loss prevention activities across the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So if it is implemented effectively, then obviously it is going to help any every organization. So like I wanted to summarize. Of course, it's not like one time fire and forget. I need to have a continuous monitoring in action for the adaptive protection, because a continuous monitoring of adaptive protection to see what kind of alerts that's generating, if it is a false positive, true positive, and how effective this mechanism is working in your organization, and then you will be able to eventually improve that. And also like you can do a custom reporting tools like Power BI and Log Analytics. You can create custom reports, but in my case, like I see, even in the Microsoft Adaptive Protection dashboard itself, that would be a best place to start and see how the alerts are getting generated based on the insider risk management policies that we have set for the adaptive protection, and if there are any fine tuning or tweaking that is required for a better functionality of your adaptive protection to prevent the data exfiltration in a proactive way, then eventually you can keep on improving. Thanks for watching. This is what I wanted to highlight, especially today, how to set up the adaptive protection in the right way. Hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment your experience on the Microsoft Purview adaptive protection in your demo or in your environment. Thank you.